What is going on, Summit Chasers? I am about to bring my lovely partner Audrina onto the stage. I could see her because you can see her in the backstage. StreamYard calls it, and she was all ready to go, but she doesn't know that she's backstage. Oh, now she does. I can see her smiling. But thank you for being here. We had some technical difficulties, and by technical difficulties, there was rampaging puppies, and we'll tell you a little story about what's going on with one of our dogs. But yeah, buttons were hit that weren't supposed to be hit, but we're here. We're going to do it anyways. We're okay with being not good at stuff to start. This is our first time doing the Summit Chasers Coffee Club. It is a place where we're going to relax, take a load off, celebrate some wins from the week together, talk about challenges that we want to overcome in the week coming up. And it's stressful. It's overwhelming owning a business sometimes, a lot of the time. Let's be real. So it's really good to be able to come and especially be around people who have been there before or are currently going through it. And let's just talk things through. So you guys that are going to be in the comments, ask questions, comment away. We want your input. We want some stories. We want some wins. We want some challenges just to talk through. Today, Audrina and I are going to talk a little bit about specifically priorities because we just got off, well, not really got off, but we're still in the midst of our trip, traveling to the US and Canada now and running a business out of our trailer. So, and we've been planted for at least a few days, a few weeks now, and just our ability to prioritize, relax, and focus is just, it's like exponentially improved. So we're going to talk a little bit about priorities, and we're going to see what else comes of it and who else joins and go from there. But again, this is going to be something that's going to be really relaxed. It's not going to be a webinar. We're not going to be doing any presentations or anything like that. This is for you, and it's going to be a little bit for us. So Audrina, what's going on?
Hello. It's a beautiful morning today.
I know she
Absolutely
got
beautiful.
she drew the long straw. She gets to sit outside.
I'm quite happy with that. Yep.
It kind of looks like I'm outside.
Doggies to me. It does.
Yeah, like this is like a cabin that I built myself out of this fake wood laminate. Yeah. Maybe it's probably a particle board. I don't know, but it looks good. It looks good, and I like it. So we is there any comments on here? Can you see? Happy Saturday. Hi, Chrissy. There we go. This is interesting. So this is our first time going live with. Also, that's only showing us. It's our first time going live with StreamYard. So I'm getting used to like what all these buttons mean and everything. I have to pay attention to like a bunch of different things. Now I have like so much respect for John Duffin that like I go live with. He does really good. He's a whiz. He talks crap about himself, so he doesn't know how to do stuff, but he does. So I see through it. Hope everybody has your coffee. Or it was almost going to be one of those mornings where my coffee was going to be a little bit stronger, if you know what I mean. But whatever your beverage is, and we're relaxing. Happy Saturday, Chrissy. But we're going to talk about priorities for a second here, and I wasn't sure how we were going to start it off. But as some of you know, we've been traveling in a trailer, and not a big trailer, for a long time now. At least it feels like a long time. And when we were doing that, we were running a business. We had 4 dogs in not a very big trailer. And for a month, we had 4 dogs, 2 kids, a 6 and a 4-year-old, traveling almost every day in a trailer. Probably on average, like every 2.5 days we were traveling. We were moving spots, and we managed it. We did. I don't think we even managed it. I think we crushed it. What do you think?
I think we crushed it. There were no tears. There was no screaming. I think we
Well,
absolutely crushed it.
from
No
us.
tears from us. Yeah, no tears
Yeah.
from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Almost.
it was good.
Close. But and there's Cage. There's one of the rambunctious fellows that knocked everything over. But yeah,
I think when you throw yourself into the deep end, though, and you're just kind of stuck and you're in it and you're like, okay, we got to get through it, you don't actually realize how much was going on until you get out of it. And then things are like a little bit quiet or a little bit calmer, a little bit easier. And then you can kind of reflect and look back and be like, no, that was a lot. Like to travel every day with two kids, sometimes in the car 6 hours at a time, getting to our next location, and then being in a very small space. Our trailer's got like 18 feet of living space, I think. So you get out of that, kind of out of the trenches, and you're able to look back at everything you did. But I think it's a good reminder that when you're in the trenches to celebrate what you're doing really well, because sometimes it can feel really hard to do that. But I think it's important to acknowledge that when you're in it and be, I guess, a little bit more intentional about celebrating when you're doing things right.
Oh yeah, perspective is everything. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And it's funny. I don't even know if I want to give him any credit or not credit because he's done really really well. I don't know if I want to shout him out. I'm not going to. But there's the concept of like raising your average, right? And putting yourselves in situations where you do raise your average. And we let's be real. Like for the most part, if you're living in like the US, Canada, places in Europe and that kind of stuff overseas, your life's pretty easy, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to be really intentional about putting yourself in those positions to grow, right? And to gain that perspective. And that's what we did. And that was a big goal of why we did that, was to throw ourselves in the trenches, like you said, to and just to do it. Just do it. And
Yeah.
then we came out of it. And like you said, we gain that perspective when we're out of it for even just a week. And we're like, we have so much time. Who
Yeah.
complains about not having time? Like we had 4 dogs in a small space where we were traveling with 2 kids, and we still somehow managed to get stuff done. We still managed to work the
Yeah.
business, grow the business, and do well. We have amazing partnerships that came out of it. We're putting on this big event in October in Toronto, and we would be like you said, we'd be driving for 6 hours, and then we'd have calls, and we would just pull over at like a truck
Yeah.
stop and set up our internet one way or the other and just
Yeah.
and just work. And we figured it out, and the kids did amazing. Big shout out to my kids.
Yeah.
Incredible. And then we get back to like a place where like we have our offices set up, we have cool backgrounds, it's gorgeous weather, and the dogs have a yard and all this kind of stuff. We have room.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how did we ever complain about not having time for stuff? Like perspective is everything. And we're much more productive because now, like, we had an hour. If we had an hour to do something, like that hour, like we used 59 minutes and 59 seconds of that hour to get stuff done. And now it's that same energy and focus,
Yeah.
but with 3 or 4 hours at a time. And plus it's nice that we still have all my workout stuff in the garage here. So we have a gym that's right across the yard. But it's wild. It's wild. But so we're talking about prioritizing. How did we it's almost a blur now. Like, how did we prioritize this stuff when we had so much going on?
Yeah, no, it is kind of a blur because I feel like, again, we were in the trenches and we were just kind of getting stuff done. But I think reflecting back, it would be, well, we knew that we would be leaving super early, so we would kind of time block our schedule and make sure that we didn't have calls until early afternoon for the most part, because then we could stop while we were driving if we needed to. But I think just being intentional again about scheduling things in, and we talked a lot to each other about, okay, what do we need to get done today? What do we need to get done this week? And then just tackling it accordingly. And I think not letting things that shouldn't deter you, I think was probably the other part of it.
I like that last part, because that was just, again, we don't think about when we're in it, because it's just the way it is. Like our shower broke, right? Or it's not, the shower was leaking. So like that would be devastating, because again, we're in a small trailer. Water leaks, I mean, that can destroy a lot of stuff in a trailer, and that's bad. Now we can't shower, and it's just brutal. But we just kind of figured it out, and then got back on our merry own way. We're like, so now if something like that was to happen here, it just seems like much less of a deal. We're there, it's like, do we have to call somebody? Okay, we have to like shut down shop, and or do we have to pack up everything and take it to a repair shop or whatever it is? Like, it's just so much more impactful, I guess. Like when the stakes are that high, like you really figure out, I guess, kind of what you're made of in like a not to be cliche sort of way. But yeah, it definitely, like, just not letting that kind of stuff get in the way. It's another speed bump.
I think that business owners in general can relate to it. Yes, you're probably not living out of a tiny trailer and traveling a lot, but so often we find ourselves just in the absolute trenches. And I think it's really important to be able to pull back a little bit and focus on and sorry, set aside the time to establish what those priorities should be. What's going to be the most effective thing to move you towards your goal that you can act on right now that is in your control? Because again, like it's very, very easy to get caught up in the different whirlwind and the fires that you're constantly putting out. And I think, again, it doesn't matter that you're not living in a trailer trying to travel and kind of throw yourself into a really hard place. You still find yourself in those trenches, whether it be running a business, trying to take care of your kids, taking care of your animals, whatever it might be. There's stuff going on that will pull your focus. And so to be able to take a step back, focus in on what your priorities are, again, to allow you to move towards your goal, and setting that time aside. Oh my gosh, it's early. Setting that time aside regularly so that you can do that.
Yeah, for sure. And it is, I mean, it's not that early. Come on. But
Oh,
yeah,
stop
no,
it. It's
how do you
9:30.
think we did?
I haven't spoken today.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. This is your warm up. No, it's no, the intentionality is huge. But we, especially as like a partner, like we're partners, and we're partners, right?
Yeah.
And then we have some clients that are, married couples who go into business together. How did we navigate that? And I feel like I should know the answer to this, but I want to hear if you have the answer right before I answer.
If I have the answer right?
Yeah.
How did we handle that? I don't you start. I don't actually know where to go with that one.
Compartmentalize.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's early
very.
for me too. I haven't talked, but it's tough too. But we, like, our businesses also. It's an intimate in structure in itself, right? Like, it's coaching. We're dealing with human beings for the most part, and we're working with nonprofits to married couples running a business together, to people just in the throes of starting their business, right? And Audrina takes a long sip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Chrissy calling me out.
so it's a lot of, again, it's a very intimate business that we're running in itself, and
Yeah.
then obviously even like the messaging, that kind of stuff. And I feel like we're like, it's almost like the lines are blurry, especially when we were in the trailer. When we're doing that, the lines are fairly blurry between like what is the personal life and what is the business, because it's so much of us is in it.
Yeah.
So it's almost been very seamless in a lot of ways. I don't know if that makes any sense,
So.
because you see some couple business owners, and like they'll both have very different passions, but they kind of make it work within the same entity, being that business. So there's some, it can create some sort of like power struggles, especially when issues and challenges and stuff come up. But
Yeah.
I feel like in ours, like, we were so in line, and I just made a video of this and put it on YouTube, talking about how what we did when we started the business, what we were doing. Like, we were listening to a book that had exercises in it that kind of found your purpose, and like, what do you want to do with your life and who you are and this kind of stuff. And we did the exercises together, and that's how we decided or found out that our passions align. Our strengths are different, but our passions align. So I feel like that, like that's been huge. That's been huge. Now, has it been, you know, completely seamless and completely easy and that kind of stuff? No, no, because
Definitely
you have to
not.
be intentional about that separation
Mhm.
sometimes. And like we both, Adrina's been a boss bee. Am I allowed to say it's our life? She's been a boss bitch.
It's our lives. Do
This
whatever
is
you
our
want.
show. I can swear if I want. She's been a boss bitch for a long time. Like she was, you know, a VP, you know, a high up VP in a company for a long time. And then I've ran businesses and I've been a coach and this kind of stuff for 17 plus years. So when we go to talk as if we are the boss or the coach or whatever to each other, it takes us a minute to
Very
like put our
different.
ego aside. Like, okay, let's just take this ego out, put it in here. And like, what did you just say to
Yeah.
me? And be like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I get it. Okay. And then kind of take yourself into that like receptive mode so you can take feedback, you know, objectively, not
Yeah.
and not let those feelings and emotions sort of get in the way. What has your been?
Yeah.
This is time for reflection and honesty. What is your uh, what's been your experience with that?
I love how we're just spilling the tea. Like, how did this turn into like a couples therapy session
This
right
is
now?
what it is. This is what Summit Coffee Club is. We're just talking
Uh,
about our issues. All right. This is actually for us. This is our therapy. I'm joking. Go
no,
ahead.
I think okay. So I think one of the biggest like reflective moments in regards to how we communicate, because it's very different. When I'm in work mode, I feel like I operate. I might get canceled for this. I feel like I operate from my masculine energy, and that's very very foreign. What? What was your face for?
I don't know how you get canceled for that. I think this is true.
Oh, I don't know. But that is very foreign, I would say, within our relationship. So when I go into that mode, he's not used to me speaking like that. And I think being, I don't know, just a bit more like in that boss mode. And so that's been one of the things that's been really reflective for me, but also really fun because I feel like I have, over the last year or so, started to figure out how to not lean into that as much and be just
Mhm.
as effective and also bring different strengths to the table where I'm not running in that energy because quite frankly I find it exhausting and it's not where I want to be. So I think being able to finally be in a workspace actually that allows me to operate more in that feminine energy with a little dabble of the masculine because it is beneficial for us when we're in different business situations. But being in a workspace where I feel comfortable to show up as I am and um, be able to play to those strengths, I think has been really helpful. But again, a learning curve because I was not used to operating that way at all previously. So I
Yeah.
think that's been a big one. And we also sometimes we will straight up say like, hey, this is a business partner hat right now. And that can be really helpful as well as far as
Mhm.
helping us to kind of switch our brains and the gears in which we're communicating from
Mhm.
to not take some of that offense or to just, I don't know, have a little bit more of an easy conversation when we're calling it like it is, rather than it just seeming like it's coming from the blue. And sometimes Zach will be like, hey, I'm going to be a bit of a coach or a bit of an ass right now. And like, this is what it is. And I'm like, all right. And then afterwards, we will just kind of smooth it over. So I think those things have been really helpful. And part of why we're talking about this is because we've actually had a week with our clients where we've been doing a little bit more of like a how do you function in the relationship and in the business together. So I think this is like very top of mind for us right now because we've been having to navigate some of this with our clients lately.
Oh yeah, big time. No, and I liked you know, like putting the label on the situation that we're about to deal with, right?
Mm,
So it's like you said, okay, I'm about to have a conversation. This is who I need to be right now in order to get the outcome. So kind of like you're labeling it, like I need to be the coach right now.
yeah.
So I'm gonna start giving you feedback right now. And then if you label it, you can kind of control your reaction to it a little bit because now you're reacting to a thing, not your ego. Like you're reacting to like a specific situation to get an outcome. So that's been huge. And it's kind of funny. It's silly. Like it seems silly. It's like, okay, Adrian, I'm going to be your coach right now for a second. And then I'm
Yeah.
going to snap my fingers and all of a sudden I'm not, but it helps. It helps. It helps putting that
Mhm.
line, like addressing that line and kind of labeling it.
Compartmentalize it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
huge. And that's even like, if you have emotions that you're not or like thoughts that come into your head that you struggle with, labeling them is one of the first, obviously being aware and understanding them first, but labeling them as one of the first kind of steps in knowing how to deal with them, because now you've named it. Now you're kind of identifying that you have control over it, right?
Yeah.
If it has like this, it's this thing now, it exists, so now you can overcome it, implement strategies to kind of get through it and navigate it. So I think that's big. But we have a question from Mr. John Duffin. I just figured out how I can read.
Chrissy left us a question too.
Oh, perfect. I'm looking at a bunch of different chats right now. Got to get used to this. Again, John, respect. All right. So my question
absolutely kills it.
John says, my question is, how do each of you help the other to prioritize singularly? With limited time and space, is the accountability more encouraging, or is it more managing each other's time? Ooh, so in such a tight space, do you want to go first, or do you want me to do that one?
Go ahead.
I get nervous when you want me to answer these first. As you say, there's no right or wrong answer, but no, I'm just joking. I think it's much more about, so now we're not just prioritizing our own time, we're prioritizing what's most important or what's highest leverage for us to do right now. So if Audrina has a podcast, or if she has, a networking call, she's very, very good on networking calls. It's very high priority for us. It's very high outcome for us. So we would prioritize that. So I would basically my job then becomes facilitating her to get the most out of that activity she's about to do, and then kind of vice versa.
Yeah.
And then obviously we have to kind of our schedules. We're juggling our schedules. So if we have something come up and it's on both of our schedules at the same time, then obviously we have to be like, okay, which one is more impactful for the business? Okay, this is the one. Mm-hmm. So then I either get kicked outside to deal with it, or we have to move the schedule around. And that was really it. Now we don't have to so much do that, but when we had that limited space, limited time, we had so much responsibility and extra, bandwidth being taken up. We had to really be really intentional with, this is the highest outcome for our business right now, so that gets prioritized, and then the other one just facilitates and makes sure that it is as impactful as it should be. Did that answer your question? Was that a good answer?
I thought that was really good. I would add to it though the teamwork side of it. So let's speak specifically to when we had the kids with us for the month. If Zach had a call, I knew immediately, okay, I got to get the kids, make sure that they've got a snack, either take them out to go do something, clear the space, make sure it's quiet so that he can focus and not have any interruptions. And I remember one day specifically, we were at the itty bitty farm. So it was a huge petting zoo, and he had calls, I had calls, he had calls, I had calls. So we were all day kind of bouncing back and forth between, okay, quick transition, you go get the kids, they're running around the barn right now and playing hide and seek, and then you'll go in the trailer, whatever it might be. So we just kind of juggled that back and forth. And I don't even know, that day, I don't even think we actually communicated that that's what we were going to do. We just kind of got into the flow of having each other's backs, I think is what it came down to. I know that you need to focus right now, so I'm going to take the kids and the dogs and go keep everybody entertained, and then vice versa. So that was really helpful. And then, I think you covered it with everything else, actually.
Perfect. That doesn't happen often. I like it. No, it was definitely a yin and yang situation, right? It definitely was. And it, I mean, and I think that's definitely a good lesson that we took and we're going to apply, is especially with co-founder led businesses, is having that, both of you can't have a power struggle with, okay, what I'm doing is more important. What I'm doing is more important. Identifying, especially when in the early stages of a business, the first 1 to 5 years, really, and you have these co-founders, or at least you have a number one and a number two, is, okay, we're in this together, right? Which one is highest impact for our business? And now the other needs to facilitate and support, as opposed to no, what I'm doing is more important. It's having that subjective conversation with which one is more beneficial, more impactful to the business. Another question from Chrissy. I just realized we could do that. What was the biggest adjustment for both of you to see the other shift between personas? This is the first time you're seeing your partner operate in this capacity. I am struggling to understand the question. Just a second. Shift in persona. So you're saying shift between in the
Like business
vehicle
to
traveling to, or are you saying business to personal?
personal, because
That's
that came up while we were talking about
okay.
that. Yeah.
Shift between, how's the biggest adjustment? Oh man. Okay. I don't want to go first on this one, but I will.
Yeah,
uh
please do. I'm
it's
excited.
it was probably, so when we got together, I obviously, she saw me, I think, more in like my work mode, a little
Yeah, I
bit
did.
more,
Yeah.
I think, than she did, because I was out at work, and then she would come visit me at work, and I would do more work at home, and I never really saw her work that much. I never really saw her engaging in that like kind of leadership business capacity.
That sounded
So
so bad. I never really saw her work very much. No, because I was on completely different hours. I worked from
but she
7
was
a.m. to 2
yeah,
p.m.
no,
Yeah.
she worked a lot. I just didn't see it.
Yeah.
If a tree
Because you
falls
were
in the
out of the
forest,
house.
does anybody hear it? I can't remember how that goes. But yeah, no, she worked. I seen her, but I didn't, like, as in like engaging in the boss. Like, I didn't see her being the
Yeah.
leader, the boss, like that kind of thing. So when she brings that out, sometimes I'm used to like the caring, funny, easygoing, like compassionate, like I'm used to that. And then when I see her rear her boss bitch face and tone and that kind of stuff, it took some time, Chrissy. I'm not gonna lie. Uh, I kind of liked it. No, it was really cool to see that she, that she has that capacity, and she is very good at it. Like, she's very good at being the boss and directing and being firm but fair kind of thing. But it was a bit of a shocker, because it is like she definitely puts on, like she was saying
Very
before,
different.
she brings out that masculine energy. And yeah, it's kind of, like kind of like when you're taking an ice bath, like that first second you get in there, it's a bit of a shock, and then you realize it's good afterwards.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way I could explain it.
And it's funny because my answer is going to be fairly similar. Zach, with client facing and work facing, he's a little bit of a hard ass, but he does it from a place of caring so much that that was so foreign to how he is in our relationship. Like, he is so sweet, very aware of like how I feel and wanting to make sure that um he's not upsetting me. Like, just so kind and so sweet and emotionally incredibly intelligent. And then when he gets into work mode, he's a bit of a hard ass. Like, he'll call you out, he'll say it how it is. And I just, again, very foreign to how we communicate in our relationship. So to see that shift, it was like, oh, okay, this is how we're doing it. But I think as I got used to it, and obviously knowing that it was coming from a place of caring so much, it was a little bit easier to adjust to. But also, it's really cool to see your partner in the capacity in which they're so passionate about and they're so good at what they do, that it's almost like I really look up to Zach. Like, I do, as an individual, as a business owner. There's just so much that I feel like I can learn from him too. So seeing him in that light has been really amazing too. And I think that it's almost up leveled our conversations since we've been in business together,
Mm.
because now we're speaking about something completely different than we were prior to. A lot of the times, I mean, sometimes obviously we still are not wearing our business hats and we're always communicating, but to be able to up level those conversations has been great overall.
That was really sweet, by the way. No, it is. It's cool to hear. And vice versa. Like, it's the same. Like, I've learned a lot from her, and it's so much. It's very fulfilling. And I'm not saying other relationships aren't in that capacity, but it's been very fulfilling, kind of being able to get that from her as well. Like, I've learned a lot about, especially like operational things in the business, because she was VP of operations in a large marketing company. So it's been really, really cool to kind of have that piece that I don't necessarily like doing. I like coaching to it, and I
Yeah.
like implementing it in businesses, but to do it myself, I don't particularly like to do it. But and she's very, very good at it. So there's just so much to get, like a partner, somebody who's chasing the same dream as you are, and you can learn from, and you can have these like insightful conversations with, and kind of push each other in that way, and then push each other, and then draw that line in the sand, and then go for dinner, sort of thing, right? Like it's
Yeah.
really, really cool to have. It takes work. It definitely takes work,
Yeah.
but I think it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it. So great question, Chrissy. Appreciate it. How do I get rid of it now? I just hit hide. I knew how to do that. But yeah, no, it's been a follow-up question. All right. Do I want to? I'm not even going to pre-read it before I put it up here. Yeah. Now that you have more perspective on each other's expanded capabilities, how have you delegated to each other differently in your personal life? That's a good question. I don't know. That's a really good question. I would say that. So one thing that you're very good at, this is just us patting each other on the back for an hour.
No, people are not going to want to hang out.
Great. Well, once more people show up, and then they'll ask their own questions, and we'll talk about them. But yeah, it's because you're very good at like that first conversation with people. Like if we got introduced, like if we get referrals or we get introduced to somebody, or like our like initial calls, like Audrina's like so good at that. Like she's amazing at that. So I think that has played a little bit of a role of like how we operate in our personal life, just because she's so good at those types of like interactions with people, and I'm very good like on the back end, like sort of thing. I don't know like particularly how, but I know that that's made a difference because now I've seen you in that light, and I know how good you are at talking to people. That it's kind of like I don't know. It's an interesting thing. That's such a good question. I don't know how else though. I mean, you're like in control of our schedule probably in some ways.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's a big one, I think.
Yeah, that's a big one. Man, that's so good.
That is. I'm going to be thinking about that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Chrissy,
be thinking about that forever.
I don't know.
We're
And
gonna be like analyzing everything.
I do feel like the first thing that came to my mind is I don't know that we, and I could be wrong. Like I don't know that I necessarily delegate things to you as far as like our personal life goes. Aside from like keep the trailer working, handle things that are outside, but that doesn't really have to do with like the business skill set. So I'm stuck on that one. Chrissy, this is fun.
Yeah, business specifically, definitely in the in this challenge that we embarked on with living in the trailer and that kind of stuff. We definitely like there's definitely I think there's some skills that you have now that you didn't think you were even capable of before, first of all.
For sure.
So there's that. I think there's been more from that experience, like just living in the trailer and traveling, than anything else. Like I get like I'm very like I want to say I worry or have anxiety or anything like that, but I'm very like I'm very protective. That's probably the better word. Just want to make sure the dogs are okay, the kids, you, in that order. Just kidding. Make sure everybody's safe. Because our whole life was in that trailer, and I'm pulling it behind me, and when things break or something like that, like all that stuff I had to be like on top of. So that came with a lot of like my bandwidth was very stretched thin, and you were very good at like even organizing my like bandwidth type of thing. Like you were very good at that, like kind of keeping me calm, so to speak. But yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. Now I'm going to be thinking. I'm not going to get anything done. That's all I'm going to be thinking about all day. No, that's perfect though. But how does this apply? How does this apply to other people's business? Because we can help them with their business better because we've learned all these things. I have a question. I know I have a question for you. What since we've started this like everything since we started the business, it's been a while now since we've started Summit Chasers, but what do you feel like this experience has added or like elevated in like the way you react with other people, like the way you look at relationships, the way you look at interacting with others?
It's a really good question. It's a tough question. It went somewhere that I didn't expect you to go. So initially I was like, oh, I think I know how I'd want to answer this. And then you completely swerved on me. So how has it affected how I interact with other people? I'd say curiosity. I'm gonna go with curiosity because I think through the process of um, understanding sales and how to network and things like that, something that you absolutely need when you're a business owner, but then you're also handling some of the sales and the networking and outreach is curiosity. And I have always loved like learning about people and talking to people, but there's another layer of that has come out since we started that I just like to dive in and get to know, really get to know the person that's in front of you has been, I think, one of the biggest things that has come from it. Because when you're when you're in corporate, you function within the role that you have, but you don't necessarily have to cross into new roles often. Whereas when you're a business owner, you kind of have to wear, especially the stage that we're at, you're wearing so many different hats. And so you have to be able to adapt and learn new skills. And the sales piece was one that I wasn't terribly familiar with. I mean, I did it a little bit when I was selling dance packages, but that's completely different because they're buying to work with me on a skill that I have. It's just a completely different ball game. So yeah, that curiosity piece, asking questions, letting others speak more than you do. I remember you said that to me one day after, I don't know, I think you probably watched back or heard a little bit of a call that I had had with somebody, and you're like, you really want to be speaking far, far less and just understanding much more um, when you're interacting with people in that capacity. So I'd say that.
No, that's huge, and that's a big lesson. Like sales, like people say, sales. It is a career. Obviously, it's a job. It's a career. It's how you can make a lot of money doing sales, and you can create a lot of wealth for
Skill
yourself
set
doing sales.
though.
But it's the skills that you
Yeah.
develop. Like sales is really, it's almost like an internship for life in a lot of ways,
Mm.
because you have to be curious, you have to ask questions, you have to learn how to care, you have to learn how to get past objections to see the real objection. And you have to be patient. You get beat up all the time, especially if you're starting out like a
Yeah.
BD role. You're making cold calls. People say no all the time. You're sending out messages. You're like, I've sent out 100 messages and no one said anything. That's fine. You got to keep going. So you get a lot of
Yeah.
grit, and grit is a huge,
And resilience.
yeah, it's a huge attribute in sales. It's just to keep going. It's paying attention to the little things, and kind of being able to look at your activities, look at the process itself, be able to pinpoint where the leaks are and where you can improve and this kind of stuff. And the idea of always improving. Like sales is such a big, it's like sales and sports. Those have been the two things that have taught me the most in the last 17 years. And obviously as
Yeah.
a coach for that time too, you learn a lot. But I would say I would say those two things, sales and sports, has been probably the biggest contributors to like my attributes and skill sets, and probably a lot of
Yeah.
others have kind of had similar backgrounds as well. Um, I think that's, yeah, no, that's 100%, and I can tell that as well with you. Like like I said, you're so good at those initial conversations because you're curious, and because you think through, you try to get to know the person, you try to find out, okay, what is their pain, why were you enticed to get on this call with me? It's because like you're trying to find an answer for something, right?
Also genuinely care. I genuinely care. And I'm like, I want so badly for people to succeed in what they're passionate about. And so
Mhm.
just to have the opportunity to understand and get to know them at a deeper level or know what they feel is holding them back and then being able to make things a little bit easier along the way. I care so much. I want people who are trying to do really amazing things to be successful in it and to play a role in that just is incredibly fulfilling too.
Yeah, yeah. That's our dog, our guard dog. Yeah, it's
Yeah, you could hear him.
in that's why your podcast is so well. Like your voices of impact, you're talking to those individuals that are trying to make a big impact, a big difference in their their communities, and whatever the problem that they're trying to solve is. Uh, it comes out. It's genuine, and people know that, and that's why you're so good at it, because it comes off. It is genuine. It genuinely is. It genuinely is genuine. Chrissy,
Genuinely, genuine.
what did you say? For me, I think the experience of Summit Changers has given me more self-awareness of where I need grace, and I've been giving people way more grace where I see similar traits in myself. You
Mhm.
have been giving people way more grace. Yeah, that's it's almost like it gives you like another perspective so that you can put yourself in other people's shoes a little bit more. And
Mhm.
like one of our laws of leadership is, you communicate for the outcome and for the people that you're communicating to. You're not communicating for yourself. And, a lot of times when we're not intentional about it, we just communicate and we just see things from our lens. And then we don't give the proper grace, as opposed to being able to relate and put ourselves in their shoes and then communicate from that perspective of you're a different human than me, but we both are on the same team. We want an outcome. So I'm going to communicate in that way. And then giving yourself, that grace and seeing that in other people. Empathy. That's the word that comes to mind. What do you think, Audrina?
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually just making me think that, and I've talked about this a few times, but I think being an entrepreneur is one of the most challenging and rewarding things that you can decide to do. So like with Christy saying that it's given her more self-awareness, I'm sure there's way more too that has come from diving into this space. And I think if you want to challenge yourself, really learn who you are, who you're not, and develop yourself and build resilience, going into being an entrepreneur will do all of that for you and more. And I think that, like I said, it's very, very rewarding, but it can also be really challenging. So you have to step out of your comfort zone so much. And with that, give yourself grace, because you're going to be crap at things sometimes, and you have to be okay with that. So yeah, that has been a new thing for me.
Yeah. Being an entrepreneur is like you're cage. Come on, buddy. Being an entrepreneur is like you're constantly being held up a mirror to yourself. Like everything you do is, I don't want to say scrutinized, but everything that you do is there's an immediate reward or reaction or outcome, from whether it's painful or a failure or whatever it is. There's an immediate reaction to it. And if you're in corporate, I mean, obviously there's consequences to some of your actions, but your actions are depicted by the path somebody else set for you. So you're not necessarily opening up a mirror completely to yourself. You are in some cases. I'm not taking credibility away or accountability, away from anybody, but the mirror that you're holding up is dictated on standards that have been set for you. Right. And when you're an entrepreneur, like everything you do, right, like the consequences are right here, and you really have to. The mirror's always there. It's always there. Anything that you do the feedback is on you. The outcome is on you. The success or failure is on you. So it's always right in your face. It's always right in your face. Which is kind of, it's a good thing. It's a good thing because like you grow so much quicker. I think again, this is getting into opinion territory. I think you grow a lot quicker that way. I think if you're introspective, if you are willing to take responsibility for things, that's another thing that we say. Like the best leaders, the best business owners, they take responsibility for everything that they can, absolutely everything, right? Short of an earthquake hitting, and even then they're like, "Oh, I should have prepared better for an earthquake." It's a weird example, but you know what I mean. Like you take responsibility for everything. Whereas if you're just a number, all in some cases, and like these bigger companies, it's a lot easier to not do that. And then you get in the habit of not taking responsibility. Then you get in the habit of having somebody else dictating your path and growth. And a lot of times that's not a great place to put. Most of the time, that's not a great place to put your future in the hands of, which is somebody else.
Yeah. I think on that note, well, there's two things I want to say from there. Another thing with entrepreneurship, it's incredibly vulnerable. And I think that because like you said, everything is on you. And a lot of times when you decide to start a business, it's coming from a place of passion. So you're literally putting your heart and soul into what you do. And then to see how people are going to respond to it, react to it, if they believe in it, it's just very vulnerable. And you have to kind of open yourself up to understand that you're not going to be for everybody, and that's okay. But the people that are for you are going to be your people, and it's going to feel so good to be able to support them and help them in whatever it is that you do, whether it's product or service. And I think that in itself is also rewarding. And then the other side of it, when you're talking about if you're in the corporate space, which is also absolutely fine, but I think something that you can do to kind of take control of your growth and your path and all that is gear more towards being that entrepreneur, where you're looking at your role almost as your own business, so that you are owning your growth, your path as much as you can, right? There's going to be some situations in which maybe you don't get the promotion, but you can still operate to your fullest capacity and turn yourself into that entrepreneur and build your skills and develop yourself so that you can excel. And maybe it's moving into a new corporate space or a new career, whatever it might be. But I just want to call that out too, because there is a way. Often it's going to be off of your own back to do that and to commit to that. But if you decide to, then you can see a lot of the growth as well.
Spot on. I could totally agree. It's yeah, it definitely hit me when you said it's vulnerable, because you're so, I mean, even just in like today's day and age, like how much content plays a role in it.
Yeah.
And then being willing to, and the more you do it, the more, and especially if you're paying attention, the more willing you are to be, like, you want to be genuine. Like so many of these social media platforms are just like echo chambers, or they're rewarding non-valuable content. Like this thing on Instagram, I had somebody on the podcast. I had Lindsay McMillian Steeman, also known as LinkedIn Lindsay, and we were talking about how, like, in order to get the vanity metrics successful on some of these platforms, you just play into like the algorithm. And right now on Instagram, there's it's just a stupid thing where like they have this dumb sound. It just is like a beep in your head. It's like the most annoying sound ever. And then they play, like a loop of like a half a second video with text up there. So you have to read the text. And while you're reading the text, it plays the video over and over again. So it looks like you're getting a lot of views. Like that's trending right now. It's crazy, dumb, invaluable.
Yeah.
I can't wait for it to go away. And then, so we were talking about that. And then on LinkedIn, it's, people are copy and pasting each other, and everyone thinks they're figuring out the algorithm. Like when I see, that maybe our engagement drops or changes a little bit, I try to pay attention to some of the experts that are on there. And I literally had 3 of them as I was scrolling back to back, 3 different LinkedIn experts give contradictory advice on what works on LinkedIn. One was like, when you post something, be the first comment on there and pin it. And like that helps with engagement. And then the next person was like, don't do that, because then LinkedIn sees that and it's tricky and it'll like downgrade your post. And then one's like, don't, like, make sure that your call to action at the beginning, like put the links at the top. The next person was like, don't put links in there at all. Bless you. So it was like, I don't know what to do. Just put good content out there, be genuine. And obviously there's going to be things that work. There's probably things that work for you a little bit differently than others, just because, their business is different from ours. Our message is different from ours. We cater to a different audience than them. But it's vulnerable because you have to try, and you try stuff. Like this morning, this is our first one, and the dogs knocked everything over, and we had to like make a whole new event go live. But we did it anyways. You just figure it out. You just do it. But that's vulnerable. That's admitting that you made a mistake and that you look silly, but you do it anyways, right? You own it. So there's just even that piece alone, with every other piece of running a business, it's vulnerable. You take a lot of risks, right? But that's life. That's life. I wouldn't have it.
That is such is life.
Such is life. Such is life is a good way to end this. I think 48 minutes is good. I think this is great for our first one. I want to thank everybody who joined, John, Chrissy, and there's a few others that I couldn't see because I don't know what I'm looking at half the time on here. So I'm going to have to figure that out a little bit better. I'm more of a trial by fire kind of guy. But I want to thank everybody. Go ahead.
I feel like with it being our first Summit Coffee Club, I feel like we need to set the stage for next week a little bit. And also, though, I would love to know what was a win from those who are still hanging out with us. What was a win that you had this last week? And then what's something that you want to accomplish next week? Sorry to throw that on you, Doc.
Coach Audrina. No, that's perfect. No, that's what we want to hear. We want to hear your wins. We want to hear some challenges. We want to talk through them. We want to help. We want to add value. We want to take some of that stress on and alleviate it, overcome it, and move into next week more clear, more powerful, more excited, with some momentum. So definitely drop those. And for next week, we have a special guest coming on. His name is Rob Cameron Poor. He is actually the one that we are partnering with when we're putting on that summit, the conference in Toronto on October 19th, the Young Professional Leadership Summit. It's going to be an absolutely amazing event. We have amazing speakers. We're going to have a website for that done in the next few days. So you'll be able to go in and check it out and purchase your tickets. And then we might have some other stuff that I may have announced in another video that I'm not going to announce here. But join us next week at the same time, where we will be joined by Mr. Rob Cameron Poor, and we're going to talk through that event. And who knows what else? I didn't think we were going to be talking about, basically
relationships
counseling, but what the people wanted, right? So thank you for joining us. I hope this got your next week off to a great start. I hope it ended this week off beautifully for you. You're less stressed. You can see because you see what the things that we're going through and the things that stress us out. So you know that you're not in it alone, at least. But until next time, everybody, keep chasing your next summit. So is that awkward? Like,